And now we'll be diving into the browse abandonment. But real quickly, before we talk about the browse abandonment, I wanted to point out that there's actually 3 different types of abandonment emails. So one is browse abandonment, which is when someone on your list that you have their email for is just kind of casually viewing a product, but they don't actually add to their cart. The second is the abandoned cart, which most people seem to know. And that's when someone on your list adds to the cart, but doesn't start checkout. And then the last one's actually called abandoned checkout. And this is when someone's browsed your product, added to cart, started checkout, but didn't make their purchase. So these 3, we'll be walking to each of them individually, and they're all really helpful for driving revenue. Typically when I audit potential clients' emails, most of them are not even doing any of these, or if they are, they're only doing one, typically because they don't know of the others. If you don't have these flows, you're basically leaving an additional couple $1,000s per month on the table. Most of our clients that are doing 6, 7, and 8 figures are doing anywhere from about $2,000 to $4,000 or $3,000 to $5,000 for each of these flows. One other thing worth noting, so as mentioned, Klaviyo is my personal favorite email platform. Klaviyo doesn't really make two of these 3 that easy to do. By default, you have the abandoned checkout, but you don't have the abandoned cart or the browse abandonment. So you'll actually have to add snippets of code to your website. Don't be afraid if you don't know how to add this snippet of code. I've provided documentation for how you can add it to your store. It's pretty simple to do, and we'll try to create a video as well, if needed, on how you can actually do this yourself. So a couple high-level tips for personalization is make sure that when you do these emails that you dynamically display the product itself. And we'll walk through how to do that. But the key is making sure that you're showing people the products that they either looked at, that they added to their cart, or they started to check out. This will remind people what they were browsing or looking at, and this will most likely get them to come back. And again, as mentioned in the Well example, it's really important to kind of call out the pain points that you're solving for. So with Well, if someone was sore, then they should go for the muscle product. So in your abandoned cart, if someone's looking at the protein option, remind them that this will help with their muscle soreness. So it's really important to highlight the value that your product brings the customer to help drive the sale. And again, make it really easy for the customer to come back. With all the links that you can create, it will take them back to the product that they were viewing, or it will take them back to their cart, or it will take them back to the checkout. So make sure you're leveraging those links so that way the customer doesn't have to go through the whole process again. So diving into the first abandonment series is the browse abandonment. And again, as a reminder, if someone's already on your email list and views a product but doesn't add it to a cart, this will trigger the browse. So again, everything for all these emails are based off triggers. Someone views a product, they'll then receive this browse abandonment. The point of the browse abandonment and the reason why it's so effective is this helps drive people down your sales funnel. So people obviously have entered their email, so there's some intent. They've viewed products, whether it's casually or with intent. So this will help them move farther down the funnel and ultimately try to drive the sale. And again, because this is an automated flow, this is a really great way to set up a flow that will help drive revenue while you're sleeping or doing other things. The browse abandonment is going to work for you while you're busy doing whatever it is you're doing. One thing worth noting is the browse abandonment emails typically have the highest open rate of all the other flows, and also have a higher open rate than all your campaigns typically do. These emails typically have about a 63% higher open rate than typical broadcast campaigns. Because people have, again, taken an action that then lead to an email. With a campaign, because you're broadcasting to them, this isn't something that people necessarily asked for or were expecting, whereas with the browse and all these other flows, they took an action, and browse abandonment is pretty popular and common now, so people tend to expect these emails. So now we're gonna dive into a real example, and it's gonna show you some revenue for one of the swimwear clients I have. So on my screen right here, you can see kind of at the top where it says the trigger, that this is when someone views product. So after 2 hours of someone viewing a product, it will then trigger this email. So you can see here we have 4 different emails. Typically I recommend 2 or 3. The reason we got up to 4 is we started with 2, thought that we could drive more revenue, so we added a 3rd. And after analyzing the 3rd one, I saw that we can drive even more revenue, so I added in a 4th. But starting out, I recommend building 2 or 3 of these emails. And kind of at a high level, again, these all have what are called flow filters. And basically this is a filter that will boot someone from the flow itself, or it's basically the criteria that allows people to get in. And with this, there's 3 of them. So one of them is if someone makes a purchase after any of these emails, they'll stop receiving the other emails. You don't want to annoy customers with receiving too many emails. So if they purchase after the first email, you don't want to send them 3 others. They'll then go to a post-purchase as mentioned. So one other thing that you can leverage to make sure that people aren't getting annoyed and not receiving too many of your emails on a daily basis is leveraging in Klaviyo in particular, what's called smart sending. And basically what smart sending does is it allows you to set the number of hours that people will not receive more than 1 email within. So typically it's normally ranges from 16 to 24 hours. So if someone received a campaign email today, and they were supposed to also receive a browse email because they looked at that product, but they didn't add to their cart, Smart Sending would prevent them from receiving that browse email today. Because again, we want to make sure that people don't get too many emails in one day. You work so hard to get people on your list. We want to retain them, convert them, and have them as customers for a long time. So we're trying to avoid having them unsubscribe. And then the other filter is around added to cart and started checkout. And what I mean by that is, so the browse abandonment, if you think about a customer, right? So they entered your list and they're viewing products. They're interested, but they're not as far down the funnel as abandoned cart or an abandoned checkout. So these filters basically say if someone's added to their cart or they started checkout, do not send them this browse abandonment because we want to prioritize other emails that are further in the funnel. And we'll dive into each of these examples, but you can see this flow is driven about $600 for the first email, about $250 for the second email, about $700 for the third email, and the last email is driving actually the most revenue, about $800. So I'm going to dive into each email right now, as well as kind of behind the scenes of how it gets set up. So on my screen right now, this is an example of the first browse email. And you can see that it has a picture of a camera and also has event name. When someone actually gets this email live, Klaviyo and your storefront are basically going to dynamically render and show what this actually looks like. But this is how it sets up. So here's the email example that correlates with that first thing. So for example, this person was reviewing this swimwear. And then based off of that swimwear, you can see at the very bottom, we recommend these products for you. That we're also recommending 3 similar products. So that way, if for whatever reason they didn't like the one that they were viewing or they liked another one better, they have the option to check out others, or in an ideal world, they'll buy the one that they were looking at as well as one of these 3 others listed below. So this is a really great way to kind of get people to purchase. And one other thing to call out is up top, kind of these browse emails, a lot of people don't send them because they're kind of creepy. So we're kind of being a little bit playful, saying around, hey, do you like it? We had a hunch. And we're also offering a discount code here to incentivize people to make the purchase. And in email 2 here, again, the setup on the email itself is exactly the same. You're going to leverage that same dynamic product block that will show, again, the product they were looking at, the name, and any other information like price that you want them to see. And you'll notice here also too that the copy changed, the CTA button changed from browse or look at it to now snag it, and also to the products at the very bottom. So again, here's what that second email looks like for the browse abandonment email. So in this case, this is taking a different customer's example. So that's why the swimwear is different. And you'll also see different options across the bottom that we recommend to that specific customer. And I'm not going to go through the setup of that last email because again, they all formulate the same structure. But here's what the third email looks like. Here we're kind of pulling on the strings of time. So there's 2 hours left to use this discount code. We're trying to make it be scarce. So we're trying to drive that increased intent to drive the purchase right now. So again, you can see a different bathing suit here and a couple different options. For you in particular, if this customer happened to be the same, they'll receive the same swimwear and the same recommendations throughout. But in the example I'm pulling, I was showing you different customers just so you can kind of see different products. And then last and not least, this is the last email that we'll send in this flow. And this is basically saying, we've got your back. It looks like you didn't use your discount in time, so we're actually extending your discount code. And you noticed, I think in the flow overview, that this email drove the most amount of revenue. I think customers like this email because technically their discount was supposed to expire, but we're saying to them, hey, we've got your back. We're letting you use the discount code, but don't miss out on it. And that's what this email looks like. So we're now looking at another example of another client that we work with and how they've gone about setting up their browse abandonment and what the content actually looks like. So you'll notice here that the same trigger was being used, again, around viewed product. That trigger is never going to change. It'll always be the same for the browse abandonment. And then you'll notice here what's different on this client is that we're leveraging a conditional split. And essentially what a conditional split in this case does is it splits the traffic into 2. Version A gets one time, version B gets another time. So in this case, the people that receive the first email in version A, they're going to receive it after 1 hour. Whereas the people on the right-hand side in version B, they're going to start receiving that content after 2 hours. The reason that we do this is everyone has a different conversion rate depending on the time delay. Some clients we work with send this browse abandonment after 1 hour, and other clients see it better performance after 4 hours. So you can see here that after 2 hours of sending this first email, there's slightly a higher placed order rate of 1.2% after 2 hours versus 1% after 1 hour. And again, you can see the revenue here is pretty substantial. The left side has driven about $1,000 in revenue, and the right side has driven $1,200 in revenue. One thing to also point out is when you see kind of two emails that look stacked on top of each other, that means we're also running an A/B test. So in this case, we're doing an A/B test on the subject line. And you can see on the variations over here on my screen on the left-hand side is one of them will actually say, are you interested in, and then it will dynamically render the product's name. And the other example will say, are you still interested in it? So one product's leveraging personalization, and the other one's being a bit more ambiguous. And let's dive in actually into the difference of those results. Okay, so you can see on my screen now, and this is actually kind of surprising that you can see, in this case, the one that's a little bit more ambiguous is actually outperforming the one that's leveraging the dynamic product name. So it's basically 38.6% for the one that leverages the product name versus 39.4%. So the open rate is a little bit better on the one that's more ambiguous. And you can also see too that the click-through rate is also higher on the second version. And then you can see the revenue. Again, don't compare these apples to apples in terms of the number of revenue driven, because you'll notice that version B has sent to about 2 times many more people. And you'll notice when we go back into the content itself, that that's actually intentional. So after about running a test for a couple weeks on a 50-50 split, we saw that the second one was performing better. So we changed the split to 75-25. So 75% of the people are going to receive that second version. Now let's look at the content. In Klaviyo, it's really cool because you can actually preview content as subscribers will receive it. So in this case, we'll go to preview, and that will turn, kind of this camera window that I mentioned before as a dynamic product block into an actual image, and we'll be able to leverage recent customer data. So preview, and this will show you Valerie was looking at this specific product. So if we go to preview now, this is actually the email that Valerie will receive live in her inbox. So the title up here is, are you interested in, and then the product name, so love to chew fresh, etc., and then the product itself. And if you actually click on the image or the button, this should take you to the product that you are looking at. Perfect. So again, it's really important to make sure that in this example, you're taking people to the product that they were looking at. Obviously, you can't take them to their cart because they didn't get that far, but make sure you link them to where they're taking. So no matter what I click, whether it's the image or the button, both will take them there. And again, this is, people were looking at this, so we're making sure and reminding them that they once were interested in this, an hour or two ago, to please check out and purchase a product. So here, in this case, we're also doing an A/B test on the time delay. So in this case, someone will receive it after 1 day or 2 days. And you'll notice that someone receiving it after 1 day is performing better. That's a 0.6% conversion to a 0.4% conversion. So after this video, I'll probably go swap those and make the one that's winning better. So again, after 2 hours for the first email and after 1 day for the second email seems to be kind of the optimal time delay. In terms of time frame, the first email should be sent within a couple hours, and then the second email should be sent within 1 or 2 days. If you want to add a third email, you should send that between 1 and 2 more days. So people typically should start receiving this content immediately, all the way up to about 2 to 3 days later. Again, here you could see the split of 75 to 25. We're running an A/B test here also on subject line, which is similar to the first one. And again, here you can see version B, which we're sending to more people, has a higher open rate, as well as a higher click-through rate. And now for the content itself. So you could see here in the title that they're also talking about the product that someone was viewing, as well as showing the image itself. And with this particular client, they have a program where for every product purchased, they donate a meal to a shelter animal. So that's really kind of a great way to connect with customers and convince them to purchase. And again, here you can see this specific customer was looking at this product. And if they click on the image, it's going to take them back to that product. So again, this is really important, making sure that you're linking people to where they need to be. And at the very bottom, again, here's kind of more just social proof saying, hey, we've helped donate over 14 meals to shelter animals. And that's really kind of something that helps drive the sale home. And then last but not least, we have one more email here, basically telling people it's their last chance to get this product. So I'll show you that content here, but again, this email has driven a little shy of $2,000 in revenue. All the content's pretty similar. It's just making sure that you have enough emails without having too many that you can actually convert your customer. Again, multiple touch points are needed, so that's why we have 3 emails for this particular case. And again, lastly, as mentioned before, the image itself, the CTA, talking about kind of the impact that they've had. And then in this email, this is the first email that we're actually offering a discount code. So use code don't miss 15 off for 15% off your purchase. And then one last thing I wanted to mention is, as I've gone through some of these open rates, click-throughs, and these place order percent and the revenue, these are all for the past 30 days. So across the top, you can see analytics for the last 30 days. So this customer's doing 2,000, 4,000. So they're doing about $3,500 to $5,000 per month just from the specific flow. So a lot of revenue that you could be driving. And then one other thing that you'll get from me is I've created 20 of the top browse abandonment subject lines that I could share with you. So just to kind of run through a few real quickly. Some simple yet effective ones is, did you see something that you liked? A couple ones that are personalized is, hey Phil, any questions? Hey Phil, you've got great taste. Some that are discount focused are deals that make us proud, or shop now, save big. And then lastly, creative ones were, were you checking me out? We must have the same taste. So you'll see about 5 different subject line options for 4 of those categories. Again, you have simple yet effective subject lines, personalized subject lines, discount-focused subject lines, as well as creative subject lines. So I hope that helps. Make sure to download those resources I mentioned. Again, one will be for how you set up this snippet in your store, and the other will be a couple subject line examples. And also you'll have examples of what the content looks like that are reviewed. So go make sure you get started building this content today. Excited to see how much money you can make.